All right, this lesson is kind of a standalone lesson, doesn't really fit in with our other units. And it's related to what you did in Algebra 1, but it's called Systems of Equations in 3 variables. So if you need to solve for 2 variables, you need 2 equations. If you need to solve for 3 variables, you need 3 equations. So we're going to practice an Algebra 1 level with 2 variables first, and then we're going to move into the 3 variables. So back in Algebra 1, you would see a systems of equations like you see on that first problem, where you have 2 variables and you need to solve for both the x and the y. Now you learned 2 algebraic methods to do that. The one that you're going to want to use for what you see in Algebra 2 is called elimination. So a review of elimination, that's where you would multiply one or both equations by a number, and your goal was to pick a letter to eliminate. X or y doesn't matter. And you would want the coefficients touching those letters to be the same but opposite signs. So one positive, one negative. Then you're going to add those equations together to eliminate one of the variables and finish solving. So on this problem, I am going to choose to eliminate the y's. So I am going to multiply the top equation by -5 and the bottom equation by 3, because then my top y will be -15, my bottom y will be +15, and when I add them together, the y's will go away. So distribute your -5, distribute your 3. So -10x plus 15y equals -30. 9x plus 15y equals 27, and I just realized I put a +15 on the top equation, not negative, excuse me. -15y. Alright, so now I'm going to add these equations together, and when I do, the y's cancel. -10 plus 9 is -1x. The y's are gone. -30 plus 27 is -3. And now I divide by -1, and x equals 3. I still need to find the y value, and all I'm going to do is substitute the 3 back in to find out. Now, it doesn't matter which equation I use. I'm going to use the top one. 2 times 3 plus 3y equals 6. So 6 plus 3y equals 6. Subtract. Divide by 3. And y is 0. Okay, so usually we write the answer is the coordinates of a point where it crosses. So we get a 3 and a 0. Now you did that back in Algebra 1. When you have 3 equations with 3 variables, you might have to do elimination up to 3 times. Okay, some of the problems are shorter and you can get by with just 1 or 2, but generally 2 to 3 is normal. Alright, so when you've got this situation, you need to pick 2 equations to start with, and you need to pick out what letter you want to eliminate. So if I am looking at the first 2 equations, I think I'm going to take the first 2 equations and I'm going to eliminate the y's. And to eliminate the y's, all I need to do is multiply one of them by a -1. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by -1. That's going to give me a positive x, a positive 5y, a -z, and a -17. And then I'm just going to copy that second equation the way it is. And now I'm going to add these together. When I add them together, the y's are going to go away. So x minus 5x is -4x. -z plus 5z is 4z. And that's going to equal a -12. So I've eliminated a y, but I still have 2 variables left. So what I need to do now is I have to use my third equation. Okay, so I'm going to write that over here. 2x plus 5y. I have to use him because I haven't used him yet. And now I can either pick the first equation or second equation. It doesn't matter which one, but I have to eliminate the y's for sure. And if I pick either one of those, I can do that. So I'm going to pick the second equation just because. So -5x, -5y, plus 5z equals 5. And now, if I just add them together, my y's will go away. So I don't need to multiply by anything. So I'm just going to add these two together, and that's going to give me negative 3x. The y's cancel, plus 2z equals negative 5. So the first two equations gave me something with an x and a z. And now the third equation and the second equation gave me an equation with an x and a z. And now I have two equations with two unknowns, which makes it an Algebra 1 level problem. So I've done elimination twice. Here comes number 3. So I'm going to put these two equations together and do elimination. Equals negative 12, negative 3x plus 2z equals negative 5. And it doesn't matter who I choose to eliminate. I think I'm going to choose the z, because if I eliminate the z's, all I have to do is multiply this bottom equation by negative 2. So that will give me negative 4x. The top equation doesn't change, so I'm just writing it over. The bottom equation will give me a 6x, a negative 4z, and a positive 10. And now I'm ready to add them together. So those z terms go away. I get 2x equals negative 2, and now I can just solve for x. Divide by 2. So x equals negative 1. So it took me 3 eliminations to get x equal to a negative 1. Well, now I've got to work backwards. I have an x, I need a y and a z. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to one of those two variable equations I got. Doesn't matter which one. So I'm going to pick this one I underlined in red, plug the x in so I can find what z is. So negative 3 times negative 1 plus 2z equals negative 5. So 3 plus 2z is negative 5. Subtract the 3. 2z equals negative 8. Divide by 2. And now z equals negative 4. So now I have an x. Now I have a z, and now I go back to one of the original equations and plug both of those answers in. So I'm going to pick the bottom one because that's the one I can see. 2 times negative 1 plus 5y minus 3 times negative 4 equals negative 10. Cleaning that up, negative 2 plus 5y plus 12 equals negative 10. Combine like terms. 5y plus 10 equals negative 10. Subtract 10 from both sides. 5y equals negative 20. Divide, y equals negative 4. So we're not talking, well, we could be talking about a point where they cross if you want to talk about 3D, but we won't go there. So all you really got to do is say what x, y, and z are. If anything, if they put them in a list, put them in alphabetical order. Negative 1, comma, negative 4, comma, negative 4. And that's how you solve for 3 variables. Set up to 3 eliminations at once. All right, I think I have, one more example. And then a few for you to try. Okay, again, it doesn't matter what I choose to eliminate, and I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to take these first 2 equations, and I am going to eliminate the x's this time. So I am going to multiply the second equation by a negative 2. So I'm going to recopy the first equation. When I multiply the second equation by negative 2, I get negative 4x, positive 8y, minus 2z, and it's still equal to 0. So I'm going to add these equations together. The x's are gone. 12y minus 1z equals 24. All right, so this time I have to use my third equation because I haven't used it yet, so I'm going to copy it here. And I can pick one of the other 2 equations, but I have to eliminate my x's since I eliminated them on the other 2. So I'm going to pick the second equation again. I could have used the first one. It doesn't matter. All right, so in order to get my x's to be eliminated, I'm going to have to multiply both equations. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by -2 and the bottom one by a 5. So that's going to give me negative 10x plus 8y plus 10z equals negative 24. The bottom equation is 10x minus 20y plus 5z equals 0. Add them together. X's disappear. Negative 12y plus 15z equals negative 24. So I've done 2 eliminations. Now I have 2 equations with 2 variables, and now I'm going to put the 2 of them together and do another elimination. So 12y minus 1z equals 24, and negative 12y plus 15z equals negative 24. And I don't need to do any multiplying. If I add them together right now, my y's are going to cancel. So I have 14z, 24 and negative 24 makes 0. So when I divide, z turns out to be 0. So now that I have the z, I go back to one of my small equations that I got from the first 2 eliminations and plug it in. So I'll do negative 12y plus 15, so I'm plugging it into this one, times 0 equals negative 24. So negative 12y equals negative 24. Divide by negative 12. Y comes out to be 2. So now that I know a z and I know a y, I take one of my original equations and plug them in. I like the top equation because it's all positive. So 4x plus 4y plus z equals 24. And now I'm going to plug everybody in. So 4x plus 4 times 2 plus 0 equals 24. So 4x plus 8 is 24. Subtract 8. 4x equals 16. Divide by 4. X equals 4. So we got a 4, we got a 2, and we have a 0 for our x, y, and z answers. All right, homework accompanies this one. Good luck.